Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Livin The Dream podcast. I'm your host, Rishi Barran. I work at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting in Winter Park, Florida, and my job is to help people reach their dreams, people who have wanted to come in and be a sportscaster and get into the broadcasting business. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's about finding our graduates who are now living their dream and going through their backstory and kind of where they're heading next. Today, I am really excited. I've been looking forward to this one for sure, to have the great Sam Guzman with us. He is the new weekend sports anchor at KTSM in his hometown of El Paso, Texas. Sam, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. I mean, you said living the dream, and I guess this is a part of the dream. So it doesn't feel real to me still, but I'm great. I can't complain about anything, and it's just a really good position to be in, I guess.
I like to think back to what Gus Ramsey, our program director, said about you when he would see the high quality of your work when you were a student with us at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. He said, I wish I could just clone like 100 Sam Guzmans and just have them, because your dedication, your willingness to learn, your amazing attitude were things that stood out from the start. So now we're just so excited for you, Sam, to see you with that big smile on your face, enjoying what you're doing.
Thank you. I mean, Gus is funny. No, I think you guys provided a really good platform for us to showcase our abilities, and I think it's a place where everyone should, want to perform and max out their abilities and learn from a really good staff there at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. It's a great program. I learned a lot, and we were kind of the guinea pigs at that point. So I'm pretty sure you guys have learned from past experiences and have developed the program to an even, I'm not going to say better point, but you guys have evolved it, I guess. And I just think there's a lot of kids that are going to be coming out of there that are going to be pretty good. So yeah, I mean, I think I was just a guinea pig, but I hope I set a small example for the future generations that are going into the program.
We still use a lot of your work, Sam. We show like, this is how you do it the right way, right? So I show multiple clips of you in my class every month. So that's got to make you feel good in that sense. But you're right. We're hoping that some of these students coming in, and also other graduates, and also potential incoming students, see this and say, wow, this is what's possible if I put the work in. So let's start at the beginning. We're going to get into what it's like living the dream now, and kind of what your dreams are you're chasing from this point on later. But let's start all the way at the beginning. Where did this dream start for you?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, to this day, I still don't know like what moment triggered my drive to pursue this career in this industry. Obviously, I was a big fan of sports, so there's a starting point. I think it wasn't until maybe my senior year of high school that I realized this was you could cover sports for a living. It's competitive and it's hard to get into, but there's a chance to do it. So it wasn't until my senior year of high school where I found out that, you could write on sports, because we had a yearbook program, which is basically a journalism program at the high school I went to, El Dorado High School. And my whole 3 years of high school, I never did yearbook, never took a journalism class. So my senior year, I kept pestering our yearbook teacher to like, please, like, can you let me in? Like, I'll switch classes. I just want to learn something before I graduate. So after, months of doing it, of just bothering her and asking her, and she was really nice about it too. It's not like she was like, no, it's just the way the school system was. It was hard to switch classes during a point of the school year. So I had to wait till a certain point, and that certain point was the last semester of my senior year. So I was really hoping to get in. So I got in, and I had one semester of yearbook a yearbook class. And trust me, I was like way behind. I was still learning stuff that these other kids have been doing for their whole high school career. So that's where it started. And at first I was really looking towards, I guess, the print area of the industry because I thought that was only it. But then I forgot there's a whole different avenue for television. And I remember when I was little waking up at 8, 7 in the morning and turning on an NFL network with Rich Eisen and then sometimes Sports Center. So those, I knew that was a thing. So watching those shows, I was a big fan of them. So when I found out the television avenue was, there for the taking, I guess that's when I decided I want to work in television, but I want to cover sports. So from there, that point on, I was, after I graduated high school, I was looking for a school to do like broadcast journalism in a way, and I really didn't find any to my liking. It was just it was a weird point in my life for sure. Like you graduate high school and you feel like you need to be working, and it's just I felt like I was being held back, or I felt like things weren't just going my way. So I don't know where I saw it, but I saw it online that the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting was gonna be a thing. So I said, why not? Looks interesting. Dan Patrick was a pretty good sportscaster in his day. So I saw it. I went to go check out Full Sail, and I had a good feeling about it. You know what I mean? So I liked what I saw, and I was just ready to kind of get into it. And I guess that's where I enrolled, and I showed up on day one.
Very interesting. Yeah. So kind of took a little while for you to realize this is what I want. And then it just kind of developed naturally. How much did sports play a role in your life growing up?
I always played sports. So as I said earlier, I loved sports, whether it was, I really loved playing it. But at some point in my life, I realized playing it wasn't going to get me far or make me money. So that was a heartbreaker for sure, but I still wanted to stay in the sports realm. And I've always loved sports. So, it just reminds me of my childhood, and it's like my comfort zone, I guess. So I've always wanted to be in it. I don't know what I was going to be doing, but I wanted to stay in sports because it's just what I love. Some sports I love more than others, but at the end of the day, it's just something I have a strong passion for. And to be able to work in it was just something that was really high on my priority list to accomplish.
So you're in Texas and you have to make this decision. And you said you got a good feel for your visit. What type of visit did you take? Was it the behind the scenes? What did you go through when you got to see the school?
No, well, what's funny is I didn't even know the behind the scenes tour was a thing, so I didn't do that. I just watched a bunch. I went on the Full Sail website and kind of went off of that, and it was just a leap of faith, I guess, because I had not taken a visit. I read stuff online and everything. So my visit was the first day I got on campus, and my classes started 3 days. My dad flew me over to Florida, and he was like, "Well, we'll check it out, and if anything changes, like you're still, still your choice." So my first visit was like the 3 days before class, but I was confident with what I saw from the, online, and just looking at the staff. Obviously you were in it. I had not known you, but staff seemed pretty qualified. And I remember just seeing Tyler Bronski's social media, and then I think Chris Burns, and there's one more name that I can't remember. Not well remember. Like it was one of the Taylor's social media, and I was like, that looks like fun. It looks cool. Like these guys look like pros, and they are pros. Um, so my first visit was, the 3 days before class. I showed up on campus, and I walked around it with my dad, and I felt comfortable and I felt excited. And I think I met Gus. I think there's a day before you start classes that you go get to meet your instructors. Am I right?
Yeah, there's a day when new students are able to meet with Gus, and sometimes the other instructors will sit in on that, but it's basically kind of like a welcome opportunity for all the new students to get to meet Gus, and yeah, as you said, sometimes some other instructors.
Yes, yes, yeah. So that's what I remember. I went with Trent Osborne. He was because he we started the same day. I went with Trent, and he's like, "Are you looking for a Gus Ramsey?" I'm like, "Yeah." So we went together, go look at him. We met Gus. Gus talked to us, and then just the way Gus presented the program made me feel 10 times more confident about what he and you guys are building there. So that kind of sold me, and I was ready to tackle it, and I'm glad I did. Looking back at it.
We're glad you did too. We're talking to Sam Guzman, who is now a weekend sports anchor after starting his career as a news producer. We'll get into more about that in a minute, but you get to Full Sail, you don't know a soul, and then you're jumping right into it. How long did it take you to feel comfortable in your new setting?
Um, geez, I it takes me a while to change. I don't like change personally, but I know you have to. I think Gus says it. Get comfortable with with being uncomfortable. So that's something I've tried to instill in my daily life when there's something I don't want to do. But looking back at Full Sail, I remember I think it was maybe my second or third day. We had one of those IL sessions in the I forgot the big conference room. You know what I'm talking about, where we
Yeah, I
did all
remember
the
that day, and we'll chat about that in a minute, but go ahead.
just so being I that was my first time seeing other souls, as you can say, that were in this program, and there was a lot, to be honest, and all these guys looked sharp, sounded sharp. um I was nervous and intimidated because I wanted to make a good first impression, and I just wanted to be what they were already, and they were ahead of me, and I don't like being behind the steps, so that's why I was like, I want to be on the same track these guys are on. So I was nervous, I was uncomfortable, and I was a little bit intimidated. But then just seeing how you get like the staff talk to the students and how the students treated the staff, it had me settle in a little bit, and it's funny just looking back at the day.
Yeah, I'm
It,
trying to. I think the day you're talking about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I remember meeting you because I remember that you stayed after the session and we had talked about it was a play-by-play seminar, and we had talked about putting together game boards. And you said, "Hey, do you have any examples that you can send me?" Right? I think you might have been the first person I ever sent them to. And I said, "Yeah."
uh,
And I remember like the next day I saw you was at Rollins, and we were kind of doing like a mock play by play. I think we were practicing for it, and you had used the game boards and you already had them set up.
yes, no, that's what that's what I was remembering. I was like, Rishi, like, oh, when I said like the staff made me feel better, it was a conversation with. I talked to other staff members, but yes, the one that kind of bolstered my confidence being there was you, because I had a passion for play by play. I still do, but going in there, as I said, I just don't like being a step behind. So I went up to you because you were running the seminar. You've done play by play. So I went up to you afterwards and I asked you like, hey, like, how can I do this? Like, and where can I get this? And how would you do it? And seeing the passion you had for it just made me feel 10 times better about being here. You're really enthusiastic about the boards, and at the end of the day, it's a piece of paper, but it's the most important piece of paper you're going to need when you're on the job. So seeing your passion about the boards, and your passion about play by play, and your passion to pass down your knowledge to us, you know what I mean? That just made me feel 10 times better about being there, and it kind of pushed me to make sure do these things so you can be in a position like Rishi and give a seminar down the line and just be good at the job you do. So that I think that was a really key moment in me wanting to stay there and me wanting to do some good work there at Full Sail.
And then you were all in after that. And for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, we have, for when we do play by play, we have something we call a game board or a spotting board, which is essentially a one piece of paper, kind of a one-stop shopping space that's got information and players' numbers and facts about them and everything. And I believe, Sam, that was our first ever play-by-play seminar with David Steele and Charles Davis. Were you at that one?
Yes, no, no, I wasn't at the first one, but I think
Okay.
that was the second one, and we only had David. No, we only had Charles, I think. We only had Charles there. The first one, you guys had David and Charles. I missed out on that one because I wasn't even in Florida at that point, but I remember seeing that as well and being like, oh man, like David Steele was there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the next one I went to, I think we only had Charles, I believe. I know David wasn't there because I was like, man, I really miss David, dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were helpful, whether it was a play-by-play session or the producing one we did, building a rundown. I'm trying to remember what else I feel like we did a lot for a play
We
by
did. Yeah. And we're trying to, obviously we'll talk about this later, but you were there when COVID hit in your last month. And that kind of wiped out us being able to do that kind of stuff for a while. We're trying to kind of build back to doing it as much as we did at that point. But yeah, one thing that was clear about you right away, Sam, was that you were ready to jump in and take on all kinds of responsibilities. And if I remember correctly, you did not have a car at the time. How did you manage doing everything you did without having a car?
Uber and Lyft is the simple answer for sure. Yeah, I mean, my parents were, I was fortunate enough to have my parents support me on the financial end of being there. It can be hard to leave a city and be comfortable in another city, and all those aspects come into play. But whether it was Uber or Lyft, and then the more we got into the program, I made friends with Trent Osborne, Chris Burns, Tyler Baronski, Taylor Schaub, and these guys had cars. So after building a friendship with them, they would be like, hey, do you need a ride? And of course I would take it because they were nice enough to do that, and it saves you a couple bucks and everything. So it was hard, but I think I was in a really fortunate position to be able to count on some type of method of transportation while there.
Well, extracurricular activities were a big part of what you did. And in addition to being one of the best students we've had so far, you got involved in everything and everything. How valuable were those experiences doing the stuff outside the classwork to you?
I think that's the part I remember about it most, is just the experience we got from those out of classroom responsibilities. Because they gave you the experience you're looking for when you get there and everything. The classrooms give you experience too, but I don't think the WWE comes to class every day. So doing those internships with like the Orlando Magic, or just getting the opportunity to go see how the Orlando Magic work, how WWE operates. The Rollins was awesome to do, whether it was play-by-play or sideline reporting, or just cutting up highlights for basketball games. Those were experiences that taught me a lot. And to this day, I still remember when, I'm about to go live outside for a football game, or, I haven't had the chance to do play-by-play, but I'll have something to fall. I'll have something to, I'll have a foundation to go off of. And then cutting highlights, I have to cut my own stuff every day, every show. So those those were lessons that I still use today, and those experiences were invaluable. And I think people should, when they get there, they should hop on every experience that's presented to them. I don't know whether it's football or if it's cornhole, take it, because you're gonna learn something from it. So those were awesome experiences for me, and they were so valuable to me and my development there. So it's something I definitely thank the Full Sail gods for, that I got the opportunity to have.
We're chatting with Sam Guzman, weekend sports anchor at KTSM in El Paso, Texas, his hometown. I'm glad you brought up the WWE internship because you were part of the first group we had to go through that. What was that whole experience like for you?
It was interesting. I'll tell you that right now. I wasn't a WWE fan at all heading into that internship, but I knew it was a good opportunity to learn from the people there because they're good at what they did. I had no idea who any of these people were. I had no idea how this sport operates. Once I got in there and saw how these people work, I had a bigger appreciation for the sport of wrestling, for the show that WWE puts on. And I became a fan. I'll watch WWE whenever I get the chance to now. I'll watch the pay-per-view. Well, not pay-per-views. I'll watch the big events, and sometimes on Fridays, I'll tune into SmackDown or something. So that it's funny. It just made me a fan. But seeing what goes into play-by-play for wrestling is completely different. What goes into play-by-play for a football or baseball game. The interviews were something I had a really hard time with because at the end of the day, these guys are performers, but they're performers mixed in with athletes. So I have a really big appreciation for what they do. But the interviews were something I've never done before. So I had a big time learning curve with that. And then just ring announcing was something we got to do, and that was fun. I mean, you never know what kind of opportunities will pop up down the line. So, to say I've done that was good. And I think just learning the WWE is so different from Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL. It's just so different. So when I hopped into that realm and got hit with a bunch of things that I was not expecting, at first, I was really bummed out about it because I don't like being a step behind of anything, and I felt 3 steps behind with the WWE, especially when we had kids that were knowledgeable in it, and they knew it like the back of their hand, and they did well. So that taught me to put in the extra work, do your research, because I didn't want to be behind. So I watched WWE. I learned, these moves. I wanted to see how Caleb Braxton and Byron Saxton did their interviews, and they do such a good job. So it taught me to just, if you don't know something, figure it out. You know what I mean? So I think at the end of the internship, I kind of had a good idea of what the sport was, and I definitely saw progress from the day I got into the day we left it. But it was just, it taught me so much. And I will always, I think that's what, it made me feel really uncomfortable, but it taught me so much. And to this day, like, I'm really thankful I got to do that.
And there's value in that for sure, to put yourself in a situation that you don't feel as good in. It's a lot easier for, you're a big Denver Nuggets fan, it'd be a lot easier for you to throw some Denver Nuggets leads and highlights together. But when you put yourself in those situations, you learn stuff about yourself and you get to enhance your weak points, which I think is important, not to run away from your weak points. Yes, you want to emphasize your strengths, but you also want to work on those weak points, especially while you're in class and an opportunity where you're not on the job yet and you can experiment with some things for sure. Sometimes, Sam, all that hard work that you talked about, all that research and everything, it can catch up to you in the high-paced world of both this industry and Full Sail. And I know that you had experienced a point where you kind of went through a little bit of burnout from how hard you were working yourself. What advice do you have to other students who get overwhelmed with all this, especially people like you who push yourselves to the limit, and try to help them through that?
It's just funny you bring that up because I remember, I think it was in your class, I think the second class you ran. I don't remember which one it was. Do you by any chance? Or
what class it was? Well,
Yeah.
I taught you in broadcast writing, and then the last class before you graduated. I think those are the only two I had you. I have taught another class, the one that Lee DeJarlis teaches now. I used to teach that for about a month. So I've had some students 3 times, but that list is very small.
Okay. No, I just remember that because there was a point where I was burned out and I didn't realize it until I think you kind of took me up on it. Like you just asked me, like, are you okay? Or you just saw like a dip in my work or something. But I know you were kind of the person that made me realize like, oh man, I just need to like, this is hard. You know what I mean? Uh, I wish I had an answer for that, but it's, I think something I'm still trying to figure out today. And I know
Well,
you
what
and
did
I
you
have,
do? What did you do when you went through it?
um, I think I took a step back and, made sure to relax, easier said than done. But,
Yeah.
I think sometimes you do need to step away from the work. I mean, get the job done, but when you have the chance to have time for yourself, relax, do something you like. I loved playing basketball. So I'd go play basketball whenever I had the chance to. So that definitely helped out when it came to battling through those moments of burnout. Um, so easier said than done, but just, take a step back and relax.
I
That
think
that
that's
would be my best case for it because yeah, the classes can catch up to you, and then if you decide to do the extra curricular activities, those will catch up to you. But people are different, people handle it in different ways. So just for me, I just told myself like, hey, relax, you can do this tomorrow, you can do this next week. And I think it really helped out. But then, my love for what I was doing kind of helped out in a big way too, because I was like, there's a lot of kids that would probably want to be in your position right now, and they're not yet. So, take advantage of it because you're the one here, that's got this opportunity. So it's that definitely, kind of motivated me more to get back on track. So I think just finding a balance is a good key.
that's really good advice, because you do need to push to get ahead in this business. You do need to outwork everybody and put that extra time in. But you also need to take care of yourself. This isn't everything, right? Your life should be about more than just this job. So you have to know, if you're a high achiever like Sam is, you have to know that there are times when you do need to take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit, take care of yourself. As he said, ingratiate yourself in things that you enjoy. He likes basketball. Some of you might want to sit by the pool. Some of you might want to go for a run. Some of you might want to read a book. But schedule that time. And I'm serious. Schedule that time into all the other stuff you got to do, and say, this hour or these 3 hours are just going to be about me relaxing. And if you do it that way, I think that does help a great deal. But as you said, Sam, there was a lot of fun stuff you did during your time with the program. And also, I thought you really were a key player in us building our relationship with Rollins College and our play-by-play partnership. What did you enjoy most about working the Rollins games and getting to build those relationships with the coaches and the athletes there?
It was, I think it was brand new when I got into. I think we were kind of testing it out. So, I was nervous too, like the impression, we would make, and I wanted us to make a good one, and I think we did. Taking the play-by-play serious, showing up an hour and a half, maybe even 2 prior to the games to, talk to the coaches. It was a good experience because I think that's what, other colleges get to do. I think, you know, students get to call their college games, and the fact that we have that too at a college that's, not too far from the like maybe a 8-minute drive from campus. Um, that was, that was another thing that made me want to stay and made me feel good about this program. Is that, there's a school right down the road that has Division II sports, and it's good quality stuff. It's Division II. I think people forget that Division II is still good, a good level to play at and to cover. especially as a college student. So the fact that we had that opportunity was awesome. And it was one I think a lot of students wanted to take advantage of. I remember when Gus sent out the first the Google Docs sheet for signups, and I was like, I was waiting for it at my computer. I was like, I want to be the first one. I want a game. Um, a lot of us were excited about it. And once we actually got to start doing it, I know you would be there, Gus would be there to give us feedback. So it was a good learning experience because we were learning hands-on, and I think that's what Full Sail likes to do a lot, especially in the sports casting department, is you guys like to throw us in the water and see if we sink or swim. And even if we do sink, you guys are there to pick us back up and encourage us to keep learning. And it motivates, at least for me, it motivated me to make those adjustments. And critique is something important in this industry, and if you want to be better, I think that's something you're going to need. And the Rollins play-by-play broadcast opportunities we got was a good chance for us to test our play-by-play skills and learn from people like yourself who've done play-by-play. So that was just awesome. Whether it was, I know we did soccer. I love soccer, but I know a lot of kids were really excited for the basketball season. Those were fun. I know we did baseball too. We had a couple kids that did lacrosse. So like I think even if you don't like the sport, I think it's something you should try out, because it'll as you said, like trying to work on your weak points is something that's going to help you out down the line. So there were times where at the time I wasn't a big baseball guy, but I wanted to do the baseball play-by-play. So I kind of did some research on baseball, did some research on Rollins and the other team, and I think that helped me grow as like a performer, as someone who wants to do this for a living and wants to take this seriously. So the Rollins opportunity was just fun, and then the people at Rollins are awesome to work with. They want to help you out. I remember I would ask Spencer, who is like the SID for soccer and lacrosse. I'd ask him like, hey, can I interview Coach Shuck before the game, and can I go to practice and see how they practice? Can I talk to player X? Can I talk to player A? And they'd be awesome with setting that up. So it was just it was a real life experience, because yes, like sometimes you do have to go to a practice and watch how people play, or watch what they're doing, and talk to coach to see what they're thinking for next week's game, talk to player A on how he's feeling. So those were experiences that I think you're gonna have once you get into the real world outside of Rollins.
Yeah, I think what people forget sometimes is before you can have a story on someone, you have to be able to talk to them, right? So if they say no, and if the people involved with the school or the team say no, then you're out of luck. So part of your job is to convince them to have them open up to you. And then the next part of your job is to ask the questions the right way so they give you good answers, right? And again, back to what you said, Spencer and the rest of Rollins' staff, we can't be more thankful for how much they've helped us to build those relationships. Speaking of building, one thing that you built on during your time with us, in addition to your on-air skills, which are paying dividends now, was your production work into the stuff that you submitted for school and everything else. You placed a high level of production value on your work. How did that help you?
It helped me a lot, because I remember you guys mentioning there's at least the way I took it, there's a lot of things you can do to enhance your sportscast on the production side of things. So whenever I had the time, it can be tedious and time consuming, but whenever I had the time, I wanted to make graphics. I wanted to make moving graphics. I wanted to have those things that you'd kind of see on Sports Center. I mean, not as good, I'll tell you that right now. Like, I'm no Adobe After Effects expert, but I wanted to learn the basics to do something creative, and I feel like I did. And it just went back to it went back to the point that I made to myself, is that I want to, I don't want to be a step behind, and I want to learn, and I want to be good at this. So whatever I can do, it was a risk for sure because I didn't know if it would work. But when it did work, it felt good, and it just made me want to do it more and learn more about what I could do and how I could play with the studio to do different types of things for my sportscast. Um,
When it came to After Effects and things like that, obviously you learned some of that from us, but how did you learn more?
YouTube, that's the best answer. Yeah, I mean, you go through the basics and everything with you guys, and I think there's another class that solely focuses on the Adobe software. But yeah, on my off time, I would go on YouTube, and I would look these things up and see what I can do. And uh, I really wanted to learn it. So and YouTube's a really big source too. You know what I mean? So there's people on YouTube that you know work on Adobe software for a living, and they do some cool stuff. So I'd go on YouTube and try to learn as much as I can, and then take what I learned and put it into the sportscast and everything. So I know Adobe, and I know there's a lot of other softwares too, but I think just having a firm grasp on those softwares will help out, especially Premiere, because that's what you edit a lot of. At least that's what we used to edit a lot of our stuff. So just putting in the extra time to go on YouTube and learn these things honestly the only way I did it.
Let's take you back to your final month of class, which was with me. And we had class for week one. We were on campus. You and Trent Osborne did some work in the studio. You did your live shots at the green screen, all that, your sportscast. Then we had a week off for Hall of Fame week. And then you never came back. And that was because COVID-19 had hit. And we finished the next 3 weeks through Zoom. So you're all excited, ready to graduate. What's going through your mind as this is going on?
I was just really weird. It was a weird time for everyone. I don't know how you felt about it, but I just remember leaving the studio after we did the first week assignment, and we're like, oh, we're gonna have a week break, and then we'll be back in here every day for the rest of the month. And I was like, I remember I don't think I did too well on that first week, and I was just like, all right, well, we're gonna be in the studio in 2 weeks, and I'll fix it from there. But then that never happened, as he said. So it was just a life-changing thing, not for everyone on this world. The way the pandemic just came and changed so many things. um it's just weird to look back on for sure. But I was bummed out when I realized I wouldn't have a ceremony, graduation ceremony. And I was a little bummed out that I wouldn't be in the studio for the last times that I was there. But you still managed to figure it out and put together a class for us that we still produced some work for. And it was hard to finish, I think. And I think you saw that with some of Trent and I's work. Sometimes like we were bummed out that we wouldn't be in the studio. We still tried our best with our assignments, but I think it was really hard to finish off knowing that we wouldn't be in the studio, and we wouldn't be getting those reps. But props to you for hanging in there and building something for us to work on still. So definitely a weird experience, but it's an unforgettable one too.
Yeah, and I want to give you credit for the quality of your work was so good over that period. And some of the stuff you had created this video, we had to do a debate, the sportscast with the debates that you did, right? And you had created these graphics of you and Trent's heads. That was really cool. And honestly, I remember you finished about as strong as anyone ever has for that class. Yeah, I agree with you. Maybe your first week wasn't as good as your final three, but your final three were really strong. And I also think it's a testament to the fact that Full Sail was set up the way that it was kind of ahead of the curve on how to do online education, that really saved us during that time where we could easily just be like, oh, we already got curriculum built and ways to get around this. And also helped that Zoom was on the rise at the time, because it allowed us to do a lot more, where we basically were able to do all the same stuff. You just weren't in the studio.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was content with the way it ended. Not entirely, but as far as like from classwork and what the program had to offer, I was like, okay, well, like we did it, and I think we did a good job. So I think we were at an advantage with the online schooling at that point.
All right, we're talking with Sam Guzman, who is a graduate at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. We've talked about how you got to Dreamland, right? So next question for you is, what's it like living the dream now?
It's fun, I'll tell you that right now. You know, I'm working in sports now. There's still stuff I need to learn. I have really good mentors here at the station. My sports director, and the ex sports director who's still at the station and everything. So they were just they're awesome people to learn from. They're experienced in the industry. So the opportunity that I have to learn from them is something I'm extremely excited about. But it's fun to work in sports. It's cool. I mean, it might be that honeymoon phase right now. I'm not too sure. I don't know. But I love it, and the fact that I get to work from home essentially here in El Paso. I grew up here. I went to high school here. Um, the fact that I get to work like 25 minutes away from my house, like from my room, it feels good, and it's comfortable and everything. So it's definitely a position I'm grateful to be in, and I don't think a lot of people get to be in it. So it's something I want to take an advantage of, and just keep learning and keep putting out good work, and just better myself in this industry. So overall, it's been fun so far.
And you're right, not too many people get the opportunity, period, and very few get the opportunity to start right in their own backyard, where their family can literally just turn on the TV and see that. That's so cool. But it didn't happen right away. You mentioned that you didn't start in sports, and it took time to get that first job. And I remember we were talking about through the interview process, you had a couple of interviews early on, and I think you probably did really well with them, but for whatever reason, you didn't get the job. But I remember us having a conversation about, Sam, I think that you're a really humble guy. I think that one thing that'll help you with the interview process as you keep doing it is to really focus on selling yourself, and not just, kind of playing it cool, because they need to know how good you are. How did that help you?
No, I think going through the interview process was definitely a different learning curve, another learning curve. Yeah, I had a couple interviews, and I thought I did well with them, but sometimes luck just doesn't go your way. So that's fine. I guess that's the nature of the beast. But as you said, I do remember having conversations with you after like every interview I did, and you'd ask me questions while I'm like, oh, well, did you tell them this, and that? And I was like, yeah, but I could have mentioned this too. So the next interview I went into, I did that, and then you asked me, oh, well, did you do this, and that? I'm like, oh, I did it a little bit. So you were awesome when it came to giving interview advice, because hey, you've gone through.
Well, how do you sell, like if you're someone like you that was going through that process, one of our recent graduates, how do you sell yourself in an interview?
I think it's you got to find a balance between like cockiness and humbleness, which sounds really weird. And but yes, you do have to sell yourself at the end of the day, but you don't want to sell yourself in a fashion where you're coming off over the top, but you also don't want to downplay what you've done so far in your career. So I'm telling you, I think the interview I had at my first station at KTSM, the job I have right now, was probably the best interview I've done, and I felt, because I took everything we talked about and put it into there, and I also put in my head that, hey, like, this is your hometown. Imagine if you can start off in your hometown, and I was thirsty for a job. I think I'd gone 8 months, 7 months looking for work. So I was like, don't mess this one up, man. Like, come, like you don't get these opportunities often. So I went in there and I honestly just flicked the switch of like, hey, don't be cocky, but don't downplay what you've done so far. Like, know your worth. And obviously, I didn't have job experience, but I think the experience I had at the college level was, I
Just
think it
as
was
good,
something
right?
to brag
Yeah.
about.
And I think it's important to connect what you did in our program when you answer those questions, give them examples of that and tell them, look, I have been kind of in a professional working environment for these 2 years or however long it is. So I do think that's important. And you did interview well. You got the job, but your first job wasn't sports. It was a morning news producer. How did that prepare you for what you're doing now?
It I'm glad I did it. That's the first thing I'm gonna start with, because I got to see a whole different side of what goes down for a show that I didn't think, was important at first. But after doing that, I did that for a year. So got hired in maybe October 2020. Maybe a year and like 2 months, 3 months. So I did that for a year at first. And I was a morning producer. So I worked a very unconventional shift. I'd go in at 10:30 p.m. and then work through the night, and my day would end at 7:30 a.m. after the morning show. So I liked it at first, but then there was a point doing those graveyard shifts are not fun sometimes. So, but I just the experience, the learning I was doing while doing that morning show kind of made me want to push through it and keep doing it and keep experimenting with things. And then I got to work with um a team of, like, I had my talent, and then I had, the other production guys, and I would always be asking them questions about stuff about the show, and it taught me a lot, and it helped me be a better producer. So the moment I got to step in and produce, keep in mind I was producing 2-hour shows.
Wow.
So the moment I got to step in and produce a 3 to 4 or 5 minute sportscast, which is something I'm comfortable with, I really didn't have a problem with
It's
it.
like a piece of cake, right?
Yeah, I enjoyed doing it. So it taught me a lot, and it taught me a lot of the news part of it taught me a lot that I could take in sports. And do I still have stuff to learn in producing? Yes, but I think it gave me a really, really a better foundation than I already had when I kind of got out of school.
The other thing that you did was you didn't just say, okay, I got this job, that's all I'm going to do. Obviously, the most important thing is to do the job you're paying you for, right? What are they paying you for? You got to do that job first. But you built relationships within the sports department. You built relationships with your managers to let them know you were interested in it. But I want to focus more on the sports department. How did building those relationships when you got there with the members of the sports department help you land the role you have now?
As I said earlier, like, the sports department when I got there was they were great guys. They still are great guys. But I told my news director that I wanted to do sports. So I told him I wanted to do sports when I interviewed. So right after I interviewed, he took me to the sports office and he introduced me to Andy Morgan and Colin Deaver, who were the sports department at the time. And I got to chat it up with them. And it's funny because Colin Deaver was the weekend sports anchor at the time. And I remember emailing Colin my reel when I was at Full Sail, just asking him to look over it, because I was honestly I was a big fan of Andy and Colin and the work they did, especially since I don't get to watch KTSM a lot being in Florida, so they keep me in the loop with everything that was happening. So I enjoyed watching them to begin with. So I emailed Colin at one point. I was like, hey, I'm Sam. I go to Full Sail. I want to do what you do. Here's my reel. Whenever you have the time, can you go ahead and look at it? And he got back to me, gave me, advice, and looked at my reel. And it was funny because the moment I walked into the sports office, turns around, he's like, "Oh, you're here." So Colin had an idea of who I was. So but still, I
But
tried to
think
show.
about the value of that too, that because you did this had nothing to do with the job at the time, right? It was just, and this is what I talk about, that getting a job is more than just applying for jobs. It's building relationships that over time can help you. You didn't know they were going to have an opening. You didn't know that you were going to be going there to try to get a job. You just wrote to him because he was someone who you appreciated and you asked for advice. And guess what? That helped you get to where you are now. So that shows how important that is.
Yeah, and I think it helped our relationship now when we're on air. I think we're comfortable, and it was just awesome. But I got to talk to them. I told them like, hey, I want to do sports, so like, is there anything I can do to, kind of get my foot in the door without interfering with your guys' work? And they said they were open to it. Like, yeah, we'll help you out. And there was days on my off days, I would ask to go, hey, can I go with you to UTEP while you shoot this? Just to see what you do, what a day is like for you. So they'd let me tag along. I was like, hey, can I watch you stack your show and write it out? And they would let me sit right next to him, and he would be writing a show, and uh, which now I'm like, which I'm like, I appreciate it so much because now I know how hard it is to stack a show and write it, and then you have someone asking you a million questions. So they were an open book to me, and they taught me so much, and they're still teaching me a lot. But um, they really. I was telling my girlfriend this, like, I consider them like family to me because they've helped me so much when they didn't have to. And I truly believe I'm in the position I am because of them today. They believed in me. They would give me chances to do some on-air stuff. And I don't know if you give those chances to a kid you've never seen like perform before, but Colin would vouch for me because Colin saw my work, and Andy saw, how passionate I was about this. And I think they wanted to give me the chance. So when they gave me the chance, I wanted to make sure I delivered, and I think I did. So
Yeah.
I could go on and on about them, but they're really important people to me.
How much work goes into a day? You talked about, well, it's hard to stack a show. Take us through how hard this job really is.
Well, right now we're kind of in a slow season and everything, but it's still hard to do because if you want to put out quality work, you want to put time into it. But a normal day for me just looks like I go in like at 1:30. I'll go in earlier depending on the day. Some days you work, I think you know this, some days you work as a local sports anchor. Some days you work like 12 to 14-hour shifts. Am I right?
Yeah,
You've had your
I
fair
have had a
fair
few, Sam.
so on a normal day, I'll show up at 1:30 p.m. We have shows at 6 and 10 p.m. So depending on like if I have to shoot something between 1 and 6, I'll go out, shoot the stuff, come back to the station, throw everything on my computer, stack. I stack my show before I even leave anywhere just to have an idea of what I want to do. So I'll stack it. I'll put in how much time I want today. Um, and then once I stack it, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go grab everything I need. So I'll go grab highlights from a softball game. I'll go talk to this kid that signed to a Division I school for an interview. So I'll knock that out as soon as I can, come back to the station, import everything. First, I don't know if I'm doing it right still, but first thing I do is just I cut up all my video, I cut up all my sound, and I attach it to the rundown. So it's already in there. And then after I finish my video, my sound, because I think that's what's important. I think that's what you're gonna need on TV. You know what I mean? So after I do all that, then I'll start writing my scripts and throwing in CGs and all the elements you need to have for the show. And then once I'm done with that, maybe I'll have 10 minutes to spare before 6, and I'll just double check my work. There's some days where you have a show at 10 and the big game of the day ends at 9:30, so it'll be a quick turnaround. But working under a deadline is something, you know, I've learned to be comfortable with, and it's just it's fun. As I said earlier, it can be stressful, but it's like a fun stressful, like, oh, I gotta get this done really quick. And sometimes, you know, premiere will crash and it doesn't turn out to be so fun, but when I look back at it so far, it's just, it makes me happy.
Well, that's what's most important, is that it makes you happy for sure. Do you get people recognizing you now that you're on TV, especially in your hometown, that'll come up to you and say something?
A little bit. I'm not gonna say a lot, but there's been times where, yeah, it's funny, and I think it's something I'm not used to. And I went out with my girlfriend one time, and we were eating somewhere, and she said this whole table was like looking at you like weird, and I'm like, it's like, it's whatever. Like people look at people like that's the thing, but then later they come up to me and they're like, hey, you're on TV, right? And I'm like, I am. And, they were just, you know, it was awesome. And I just said, yeah. But what's cool, what makes my heart warm is that when I go to like the Chihuahuas game, which is like a AAA team here in El Paso, a lot of people like to go to those. What makes my heart warm is like when I go to these UTEP games, these Chihuahua games, these locomotive games. You know, I still have friends and family here and people that I had relationships with. So they'll see me and they're like, oh, we're so happy. Like, we remember you telling us you wanted to do this in high school and now you're like doing it. So it's good to see that and hear that from people that I appreciate.
I can tell just by the way you're saying it. All right, last big question for you. Where do you hope the dream leads you next?
I don't know. We talked about it too. I remember a couple of weeks ago on the phone. It's just like, you know, I have goals of wanting to, you know, maybe go to a bigger market. But you also told me like, hey, if you like it here, like you can stay there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I don't know. It's just, I think I'm taking it one day at a time, one step at a time. But you know, for sure, I'd love to work for the Denver Nuggets or the Colorado Rockies, or work in a Formula One, or work in, you know, boxing and cover and get to work on those pay-per-views.
How old are you now?
23.
Okay, so you've got about 50 years ahead of you. So you got plenty of time,
Right.
whether it's in El Paso or somewhere else, to chase all those dreams, because even if you stay local, you're going to get a lot of that coming through. So that's awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Last thing I like to do, I call the dream sequence, which is kind of fast answers. Okay. So basically, I'm going to ask you, dream this, dream that, and you just got to give me the first thing that comes to your head. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. Dream road trip.
Austin, Texas. I love Austin.
And you told me that's pretty far, right? It's like 8-10 hours.
It's like 9 hours.
Texas is something, I'll tell you that.
It is.
All right. Dream seats at an NBA game.
Courtside. Who doesn't give you that answer though?
I don't know. That was probably a bad question, but
no, I was just saying.
Plush seats there as well. Okay. Dream interview. Who would you like to interview?
Magic Johnson.
Nice. I like that.
Right.
Okay. Dream UFC pay-per-view event. Who versus who?
Conor McGregor's always been my favorite guy to do. So maybe Conor McGregor versus, I don't know. It just, as long as Conor's in it, I think that's probably a dream of mine.
All right. So anybody. Conor and anybody's good.
Yeah.
All right. Dream car.
It's a good question. I love Ferraris, so I think any type of Ferrari would work for me.
I know you're a big music guy. Dream concert you haven't been to yet, to see someone you haven't seen.
This is a really wild answer, but I love Led Zeppelin, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So, but if in an alternate world, Led Zeppelin's the band.
It's a dream, right? So it can
It's
be
a dream,
anything,
yeah.
right? All right, last one. Dream Full Sail reunion venue. Where would you like to have a reunion?
In the studio, right? Because I don't know, I think that just bring back a lot of memories. So I don't think there's, yeah, we could do it at you know, somewhere else, but I think the studio would be fun for a lot of us.
Well, you're welcome anytime. So we could do that any day of the week, Sam.
I'm
Fantastic.
down.
All right. Any final advice for those who want to chase their dreams as well?
Just take advantage of your time there at Full Sail, especially with the people you have to learn from, Rishi, Gus, you know, Debbie, Mark. You know, there's countless names. I can go on, you know, a lot of good people there that can help you out in getting to where you want to be. So when you get there, just, I guess, work hard. I mean, that's all I can say. Work hard and just take advantage of the fact that you're there. As I said earlier, I just, something that helped me was that I felt like I was in a really blessed position. There's maybe kids that wanted to be in my position, and you know, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity. So I wanted to build on that and take advantage of it. So I just work hard, and it's a grind, but it's a grind that you'll look back on and be grateful for that you did. So that's probably it. Just work hard and use the people around you to help you out, and build genuine relationships that you'll carry on even past you graduate, after you graduate, and just, you know, go for your dream. I mean, that's the heart of this interview. So just go for it.
Well, you have made us very fortunate to be able to work with you, and you've paved the way for all those to come after you. So Sam, thank you very much for your time today. And that's going to wrap it up for another edition of the Livin the Dream podcast. We'll have another guest for you very soon. I'd like to thank again Sam Guzman for joining us, one of our grads who is making a difference in this industry. As for the rest of you, keep on living the dream.